all the ridiculousness we are taught, all the beating ourselves up and really discouraging our own selves comes from a place of overachievement, something that I've really mentioned, but not particularly talked about here on this podcast, on this channel, out connecting with you guys, out in public. It's more something I really kind of kept privately as insights, sort of have had to be processed long-term for years. It's kind of like having long-term writing projects. Except for my long-term writing projects have been ripped up, divided up into different apps. Stored literally in binders. You remember those zip-up binders or those just 3-ring binders? I had all of those with a ton of writing as a kid, and just papers thrown away, which I write as a form of communication. I write from a place of spirituality. I don't sit there and miss the papers I threw away. I don't miss the papers that got taken out of the house in the past when I was a kid and thrown out. I just see that as strength of those papers didn't make it, and I get to rely on myself to archive my writings now. I don't need to use a childhood home as a storage space anymore. I don't have that as a luxury. And that is something that actually is stemming from a lot of the reason, I think, when we become adults, why we get into this overachievement mindset where it's in our younger adult years, it makes it very much unenjoyable to transition into adulthood. Why do you think this is? Well, there's a few reasons I want to dissect that have a lot to do with this. And the first thing I want to talk about is even just creating. Shout out to those of you that taught me how to accept radically that it's okay to schedule social media a little bit within a week of, at least for me, I do it in a very small way and I do it very rarely. But I will sometimes schedule episodes because I have other commitments in life, in networking, in community, in work, in business, in just getting together commitments and things that, even instructional commitments that are kind of community-based classes that aren't really tied to a school setting exactly, but more of an instructional environment that is education that's based on nonprofit education, whether that's in person or virtually, that I will attend, and just all these different things going on. So sometimes within a week, I will schedule episodes now because I've learned radical acceptance. I've seen some of you do this in a way that is really working for you, where you would schedule way far ahead of time. And some of you have hired people to do that meaningfully, and you've kind of had business around it. Some of you have done that so you can kind of go on vacation longer and not worry about it. And you've scheduled way ahead so that, people don't see a podcast with dead air or a YouTube channel with dead air maybe all summer, when maybe some of you have had summer vacations with your families and hired people to take your place in working, or hired people to step up in working for you, kind of a thing. That stuff really matters, and I'm starting to see where it actually helps. And so sometimes I will do off the cuff episodes like this, and I love those, and most of the time I do strive to do those because I feel like there's a sort of a synchronicity that comes with creating in really deep art like this, where the time of creation aligns with what's happening in reality a lot, and speaks the language of reality currently and goes into the present moment with you. And that's what makes art so magical. But there's also a magic about time integrated in the right way with sort of like what we're blessed with now, with all of the ways in which we can think about our present moment, with all the things we've learned from being in the now, with all the things we've learned from being in nature, with all the ways we crave challenge. And yet we not only do things that go deep into convenience, but we do things that go deep into allowing us to focus more on our creativity and less on the things that cause us friction. So getting back to like writing and engineering recording studios and all that, I've been doing that since I was real little in a manual way. I've had really shitty environments doing this, where it's just shitty equipment, just starting out in life, just being a kid. And then I've had really cool support systems that help me to level up in that I've been blessed to have. And I've also had really times where I was able to go out and kind of like learn how to create my own setups that were beautiful. And even to this day, I will use apps, recording apps for different environments, for the art of it necessarily. I don't do it in a perfectionistic way, the way that I have, and that's part of the overachiever mindset that I want to get into here, because this perfectionistic way about our content that we've had stops us from posting. It stops us from, like, if you're really doing something that important and it is very important to you, then you either have one or two insights about it. Your first insight is to go really private and sort of focus on that and make it really meaningful for yourself, because maybe you've shared a lot online of what you've been observing and what you've been doing. Or you're going to share everything and teach in a way that means sort of that you have something that you want to teach, and you're giving up a little bit of your privacy to do that. Or you're creating teaching moments out of private life, which is something I've actually learned to do. So how does this fit with overachieving mindset? Well, this fits in a couple different ways. Number one, this is where it gets interesting. As a young adult, I think we pressure ourselves to really figure it out. And this is something that I was able to take a really high risk and quit my job with all the support I've had. And I worked a lot to build up in my parenting. But I'll tell you guys, a lot of you don't know this, because I've been focusing deeply on my ways that I've had to learn. Like, overachievement has really been the affecting factor that's affected why I have the story that I have and why things happened the way that they did in my life. Because quitting my job, and I don't think I went deep into this with you guys, quitting my job was seen as a sign of, and was felt even by me as a sign of like incapability. And I connected that to being an adult, to sort of mistaken the fact that quitting my job was the ultimate failure, to say that like I deserve to start completely over, which I did. That's fine, but I deserve to completely punish any effort, any attempted effort made by saying that I had to work a certain way, be a certain traditional way of working and education in order to overachieve some imaginary goal in finance. I had to prove that I had resources to hire my family and give them jobs and take care of them. This is external family, not the family that I've created, by the way. On top of, being the best at the family you create should really come first. But this overachievement of proving that I could resource and that this is a resourceful moment for everyone. And so what I ended up doing is not taking responsibility for my immediate needs. I ended up having to teach myself later on, even over these last couple of years, that was pressure I put on myself. That was pressure I allowed to happen. I chose to bring in family and created like this chosen family and all of this because of this overachievement mindset that we put on ourselves, of this overachievement mindset that I allowed myself to endure. And what ended up happening as a result is there's also this, and this really fits into addiction and coping. I was never addicted to extreme, to where the addiction was like leaving me extreme, right? I have that within throughout my story of being homeless and things, where I was really like, I had a lot of resources that I was able to utilize to get out of all of that. But the truth of the matter is, I had an overachievement mindset of mental health, kind of based on bettering myself a little bit too quickly without going through a proper process of mental health. And what that looks like is that going to the extreme of doing anything and everything that I could to self-medicate or cope or do any of these things that I could to create my own sort of mental health vices. And a lot of us don't like to talk about the fact that addiction is really due to an overachiever's illusion. This pressure that we put on ourselves, this fake sort of like happiness that we need to internalize or create, so that we mistake it for, okay, if I have this vice, if I have this drink, if I have this pill, if I have maybe a combination of those things, or at least one of those things, if I have this gummy, these gummies, or like, then I will create a state where my mind is in complete control, my emotions are in complete control. If I meditate the right way and sit up the right way, with my feet the right way and my posture the right way and my breathing the right way, I will have ultimate, and my attention needs to be focused the right way as well, by the way. I will have ultimate control over my state, which will then help me to tackle life's things. This wasn't, and this is where it's a little stereotypical when it comes to homelessness or things that have to do with any kind of like struggling or being on the streets or being, and it wasn't exactly that kind of stereotypical sort of like story. We did everything we could to prevent ourselves. We had every sort of resource to prevent ourselves from being on the streets. But all of this came at the sort of like way in which there's a point in your life where you, as a young adult or getting older or whatever, you don't really know how to Ask yourself for the support that you need. Because others will give you the support they think you need. Others will take over in ways they think they need to, for their own thinking that, they're looking out for your well-being. And maybe they have good intentions for looking out for your well-being. But you have not sat down and introspected, whether that's writing on a piece of paper, whether that's in a conversation with your AI, whether that is drawing in a sketchbook, painting on canvas, whether that's just recording a voice memo, typing up your thoughts into a note on your phone, whatever it is. You haven't sat down and properly put out your output as to, communicated with yourself, as to even just going deep in your thoughts, as to what do you need to not overachieve, not to go into goals that are going to make you feel insignificant, that your effort doesn't mean anything if you don't reach these goals. No, it's what is going to give you the support that you actually need, but that allows you to have room to actually take responsibility in your life, to where you are processing and learning how to utilize your own resources while getting support that you need. It's very, very sort of a minimal framework that you need to start building, so that you have more room to add more building blocks, if you will. It's sort of this approach that says, okay, maybe I do need support in certain areas of life. Maybe I do need help. Maybe it does take a village. Okay, but how do I set this village up that I have true room to create in this village, rather than drain myself to pay this village back? Do you see where the difference is? And you don't have to be a parent to understand this. This definitely relates to parenthood, and it takes a village to raise a child. But this could mean it takes a village to get an education. It takes a village to become an adult. It takes a village to get access to your own finances. It takes a village to learn stress coping. It takes a village to get off of addiction. It takes a village to do anything in life, in a sense. But sometimes that village is you understanding yourself, and almost creating a village with yourself within the bigger society village, or within the bigger collective village, or within your circle village. And that is what really matters. That's how you get over this overachievement and stop using overachievement as a clutch. It's how you're able to do that. And it's something that's taken me years to even process, and I'm still learning every day. I'm still learning different ways of working, and different learning styles, and different things that I'm doing in different communities that I can create within. Not communities that are going to make anyone feel as if they have to drain themselves to pay the community back, whether that's in money, whether that's in grades, whether that's in some sort of relationship or friendship or family or situationship that you find yourself in. That's kind of like a relationship created out of this urgent place that you find yourself in today. You never thought you'd get here. And by having an overachieving mindset, you are becoming what you hate. You are becoming who you never said you'd be. You are doing the thing that you would watch the masses do and say, how stupid is this to do this shit? How meaningless is this? And then you find yourself doing it now. You've told other people not to worry about getting a college degree. You've told other people not to keep their job. You've told other people not to worry about cooking, right? Maybe you've told other people not to start a family. Maybe you've told other people, but then you're doing the things that you had an ego about hating. Why? Because you've either had a weird fear about, you kind of knew in the back of your mind that some of this was overachievement, or you kind of knew in the back of your mind that some of this was based on, you really don't hate it, but it takes so much to achieve it, when really it might not drain you to achieve something, but you've turned it into, for years and years of your time just wasting away, using others for your own entertainment, or maybe you've kind of found yourself being entertained by others and watching them live their life for years, and you finally kind of like, okay, they've gone, the entertainment is over, the TV shut off, I can no longer watch these people live their lives anymore. So maybe it doesn't seem so bad to just go and do something, and maybe it's only a step each day, showing up each day. Maybe it's opening up and reading a page each day. Anything of that nature, but it's really just that. And my family and I, there were times where my husband was working more than I even realized, and was making money more than I even realized, and was telling me specifically to focus better on my health, and to focus better on different ways that I can create breathing room for myself and not worry so much. You think I listened? It took me years to understand his sort of like mindset of just that achievement is not based on this overdoing to where you're draining yourself. It's based on effort. It's based on hard work. It's based on, we really worked our asses off in the place we were at in life that led us to homelessness. We worked our asses off in multiple ways, and a lot of you just, you see that there's a story of people homeless. You see that there's a story, maybe your friends have been in that position, or your family, and instead of you trying to understand where they're coming from, you see them as a drain now. Now all of a sudden they're not as fun to be friends with anymore. Now all of a sudden you don't really feel like welcoming them into your life anymore. Maybe they have a history in their lives, and this history is very adult and very heavy of a history, and now all of a sudden, because they have a history of real life, it's too much, and it's very obvious. Like, a lot of us who've been through life experience, we know when people shy away because you have an overachievement mindset. You have an overachiever's mindset of having the best influences in your life, when the truth of the matter is, we all have the capability to be good influences, and we all have the capability of being bad influences. It's actually down to interpretation, and it's actually down to what you get out of it. There is no such thing as the best influence. Even being a parent, even owning a pet, you're going to have your days where you have bad days, and you're going to have your very good days, and you're going to have your your times. One thing that I've learned about being a parent, that just in growing up, that life has taught me, is connecting. The relationship matters more than anything in this world, more than the achievement. And a lot of you see that your friends or your family are living a life that's not exactly planned out, that's not exactly savings account, that's not exactly with all this rich foundation, right? And you judge because of this overachievement mindset, and it's ruining lives. It's ruined my life for a time, and I was sort of like affecting others that I love, because the blessings in my life of having a family, being a parent, being married and all that, that's beautiful. But the overachievement bullshit that I beat into my own head was actually ruining my ability to take responsibility, ruining my ability to care for only who mattered most, because the overachiever ego wants to prove that they can take care of or do or get good grades in every subject, take care of every person, be the best friend to everyone, be the most liked, fuck all of that. Like that's not going to be sustainable in your adult life once you are transitioned out of adulthood. And that's not going to be sustainable to like every subject or get good grades and everything or be the best at every job duty you have or play each role in your life the best, because there's going to be roles that you're really good at and there's going to be roles that you're processing, that you're learning. My role as a creator, I'm not ever claiming to be the best creator. I'm not ever claiming to be the best salesperson or the best influencer or the best worker, because those are roles in my life that I'm processing. I would much rather take pride in being the best at parenting, marriage, family. I'm not the best friend. I'm not I'm not going to be the best friend. That's not like I can be a good friend or whatever. I have friends, right? But being the best friend, I think we've overemphasized friendship for entertainment's sake rather than friendship for a relationship's sake or some kind of meaningful friendship or whatever. I don't pride myself anymore on being the best friend you'll ever have. I don't care. Because that, to me, is not going to be your most, and should not be your most meaningful relationship anyway. That should not be your most meaningful role, to just as a friend. What it should come down to is friends to family. Or what are we doing here? Friends to business, or are we wasting our time? Friends to sort of a learning instruction together, friends to working together, friends to hiring each other maybe, and actually some of the best friendships I've ever had were people that have either I've hired or have either hired me in the past when I was working differently. Some of the best friendships I've had have been teachers, believe it or not. To me, there's got to be other roles, and it's not all about like relationships and partying and romance and any of that. There's got to be other roles involved. Like a friend, just the word friend has become kind of an empty term in society, because we've placed an overachievement on friendship. We've placed an overachievement on party girl or party dude or We've even placed an overachievement on who could drink the most and be the most loose and the most fun, and then get up the earliest, work the hardest. I've shown up for school, for work, with the worst hangovers just to prove that I could, and still party the hardest, work the hardest. It's not sustainable. Even things like going to the gym, I've just realized that in some ways, and I did an episode recently on the gym, it's so stupid because I've done episodes on, like, you shouldn't be telling everybody to go to the gym and all this stuff. Not because going to the gym is necessarily bad, and I don't think I was clear enough in that episode, to be honest, because I actually have had times where I've done really well at the gym and times where I've not done well at the gym. It depends on focus, environment, phases in life, things like that. What was going on around me, what was going on there at the actual place, what kind of place. But to me, instead of focusing on this achievement mindset of going to the gym, what if we started focusing on this achievement mindset of finding the most specialized gym in a favorite sport of ours, or finding the activity that's going to keep us active. Maybe that is a sport. Maybe that's something proactive in nature, like one of those sort of athletic, just an athletic to do. Why does it have to be you're going to go to a gym and do like everybody else has to do? Why can't success or the path to achievement look a little bit differently? Can we stop making the path to achievement be such a copy-paste formula in influencer land, in social media? Like, it is so boring and saturated, and I don't want it anymore. And that's not, I lived that life even while not necessarily being a professional influencer, while networking and building relationships from online to in person, yes, while taking different sort of education routes and work routes, yes, while having professionalism in it and non-professionalism in it, admittedly, yes, while partying too much, yes, while being too serious, yes, all of it, right? But at the end of the day, what it comes down to in these last like 30 minutes or so of going deep into this is that the path to achievement doesn't have to look so boring or so draining or so, it doesn't need to drain. It needs to have momentum, which, if you think about what is momentum, well, you push a door, it swings, right? Naturally. You're not taking and squeezing, like I've got a door in front of me, right? I'm not taking and squeezing a door. This door is not allowing me to drain the life out of it. So what do? I push the door. It swings naturally because I'm pushing the momentum forward. And there you go. That's what happens. And that's another thing I've learned just from feedback over the years in creativity, is learning to use objectivity in a way that actually fits my sort of teachings, not in a way of trying to overachieve some goal of understanding what objectivity is, in a way that relates to what I'm actually talking about in an analogy sort of way. Not in my mind where I'm thinking, well, I don't know what objectivity is. I'm not good at that stuff, so I'm just not going to do it. No, because it's very little effort to learn what objectivity is if it relates to you, or if you can relate it to you. It's like a language that I'm learning. Like this table in front of me. We always like to talk about the table when we're talking about meditation, or we always like to talk about in The Power of Now, there was always this bell that we focus on. That bell in my brain gave me, if you listen to the audiobook of The Power of Now, and I know like maybe in the actual hard copy book there might have been pictures. I just, for the audiobook, it was a great focus. That bell, that sort of pendulum bell, if you remember reading the book, is, it sort of gave me this momentum to sit down and work through the process of what it means to introspect the present moment and learn how to be in the present moment and introspect what that means by just learning. No other effort, no overachievement mindset of sit up with your posture. Yes, you do a little bit of that. I'm not saying that that's not important. It can be important when you're when you want to be in a focused mindset. You'll want to keep your head up and things like that. And it's better for your neck and your posture. But when you are just wanting to feel a little bit better about cleaning the house or doing the dishes, or you're in an emergency situation and you have to stay calm, meditation is not linear, and it's not going to be this overachievement mindset, is it? It's going to be necessary as momentum. Just like a support system can either drain you because you have to pay back into that support system, or it can, what I've learned, give you momentum as it ought to. If you're working with any kind of support system, that support system should not be discouraging you and telling you, oh, you did this program, now you get to go next door and do this other class because we're not going to hire you, or we don't have anything for you, so go next door and do this other program just so we can say we put you in something. Or if you're interested in that so much, go do it over there. We're not going to create anything for you over here. Now, if you had that idea, it kind of depends on what momentum means for you. Because if you had that idea already and they're giving you support on that idea and feeding that idea energy, then going next door and taking that class is great. That's going to be great. To me, in the way, I think it depends on the person. To me, that's not momentum. That's not a support system. A support system is, you're valuable to us. We're going to pay you money to help us with this audio project, or help us with this sort of a training. This training where we need you to train us in fitness or whatever it is. We're going to pay you for it and get you a job right fucking now. And to me, that's momentum. But for some people, they want the education. Like, long term is going to be momentum. For others, even, for example, if you want to learn, say, a language, or Braille, or sign language, or Spanish, or anything of that nature, right? Momentum is not, for me, now this could look differently to you. Momentum is not, oh, there's a class at this school that you can take that'll teach you, or there's an app. Sometimes the apps can really work. To me, it's AI at this point in a lot of different ways, but it's also, which it still matters very much, especially on an in-person level. I'll teach you the language for $20 an hour. I'll teach you Braille for $20, for a day to just, meet up for a lunch and learn Braille or learn Spanish or learn whatever. And if somebody were to say that to me is more momentum, where, okay, I'm spending my money in something good here. Okay. I'm hiring for something really useful here, and I don't have to go waste even more time or just to get some kind of grant for a college. I could just pay you right away to teach me. That's momentum. So what is your momentum? I think that's what matters. What support system gives you momentum? And that's where a lot of us in our community, being disabled or being different or kind of having different, in a minority, we get tricked out of finding our momentum. So I guess that's kind of my solution-oriented episode. I didn't expect it to be deep into this sort of solution, but I think we've got off to a good place for me to post and as we go about our lives. So I hope that this helps you to learn something that is going to really help you to learn what is your momentum and to stop with this overachievement. I don't know how to tell you anymore that your parents might not understand. I don't know how to tell you anymore that get away from people, including parents, including siblings, including cousins, including friends, who are discouraging to you all of the time and telling you it's not a good idea to do this, it's not a good idea to get out, to do that, and then they go off themselves and go do whatever it is. You know, I've had family do that, I've had friends do that. I've gotten away because that's the opposite of momentum. That's draining. But I can't prove that to you. This is a process you're going to have to go through. All I can do is give you the space to exercise your listening, to get deep into introspection by listening in on a process of sort of this long division math problem that we're doing in life, sort of this process of elimination in multiple choice, the multiple choices that we have in life. Like, I could take this and make any of it like a class moment because I was really good in school. I had a lot of support that gave me momentum to do well in school. Did I overachieve and have overachieved? Yeah, I got to the point where I was way too overly academic with no momentum on the other side. It was momentum all the way up until I had an overachievement. Can I take care of everyone while I'm going to school? That's a whole nother, not just as an adult, but even as a kid. It's like, that's a whole nother level of, you have to learn. Like, I had to learn to take responsibility for my health a lot better instead of trying to overachieve some imaginary academic goal that sort of doesn't have this gold medal on the other side waiting for me. That I have to create the life myself, that you have to create the life yourself with momentum. And if that includes education, cool. If that includes work, cool. If that includes business, cool. If that includes family and relationships, cool. Friends, cool. You know, if that's sort of what gives you momentum. But here we are at the end of the day. What are you overpressuring yourself to achieve that maybe it just takes a little less drain and a little more momentum?